Hello and welcome to the Final Bell, the Premiership edition of To the Final Bell. Can you believe it? The Cats are premiers for 2022, absolutely smashing the Sydney Swans in a magnificent day at the MCG. The sun was shining, Geelong were brilliant right from the very, very start, and a superb win. We appreciate your company all throughout the whole year. Your patience with us talking nonsense is very much appreciated because we finally got here to a premiership, and I am joined by my two usual co-hosts, Tommy Lonergan and Scotty Gullan. Welcome, boys. How good was that, Tomsy?
Oh, mate, Ling, that was awesome. That was great, Scotty, wasn't it? It was just a fantastic day. The build-up, driving up there, we had a brunch on Saturday morning up at Crown, saw some old past players, then we made the...
It smells like a cashy. Yeah, keep going.
Might have been one of Cameron Link's favourite. And then we made our way over to the ground. Even just a walk over past the Riverland Bar, just all as one, the big mob walking in together into the G. It was, and then Robbie Williams.
Oh,
Robbie and Delta.
Let's get to that. That was
Delta. She sang very well.
Yes. Scotland, you enjoyed your day?
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, yeah, we take responsibility for a lot of it, for getting the boys up, questioning their worth, and they were magnificent, truly magnificent. And you sit back and go, well, they have won 15 in a row for a reason, and they did it when it mattered.
Yeah,
I loved it.
They were the best team in the competition right throughout the home and away season. They had a little scare in that first final, but the preliminary final, grand final combination was complete domination. We're going to get to your questions a little bit later on. We were trying to wrestle an interview with one of the players, but they are in official Premiership photo mode. Plus, they do a bit of a signing session with some memorabilia. They do an entire club photo, which I think is a fantastic idea. And I can probably guarantee you that they're going to go to bed. As we've been all year, we are brought to you by Lake Imaging. Big thank you to them. They're celebrating 20 years of radiology services in Victoria. Lake Imaging are proud to be the preferred medical imaging provider of our beloved Cats, our Premiership Cats, at the Geelong Football Club. The scoreline. 133 to 52, 6 goals, 5 in the first quarter to only the 1 goal. I'm never that much of an optimist that you say, oh, it's over, because you just think the opposition is going to come at you, and the Swans have been a terrific team all year. But the way the Cats started that game, the sharpness, Dangerfield was huge, Blitzars was superb, the forward line was clicking, the skipper was magnificent in that first quarter. It set the tone of the entire game.
Yeah, it did, and you kind of felt like early in the piece, it was all Geelong's way. I know Haywood kicked that goal; it was almost against the grain, Scotty.
Yeah, it was a freak snap.
They were winning all the stats. You look up. I was looking up at the screen and going, Geelong are absolutely smashing them around the ball. I think they tripled their possessions there at one time. They're getting it inside 50, and then eventually the damn wall broke. Hawk kicked those goals. Couple of goals.
Hawk went into beast mode.
Well, it was like 9 minutes or 8 minutes without a goal.
Yeah.
And then...
But did you feel like if they get a goal, the onslaught will come quickly?
Yeah,
because
definitely.
It was all their way. All the stats were showing. They were just smashing them around the ball. I couldn't believe the disposal count.
And once it opened, I mean, they're a young team.
Yeah.
My only concern going in was, Sydney jumped Geelong, and that didn't happen. Then it's like, they looked young.
Yeah, inexperienced.
They looked out of whack. They selected wrong. We'll get on to Reid. But, Paddy McCart was still on the bench because he never matched up. It all looked out of whack, and Geelong looked, like we said, humming.
As dominant as it was, Scotty, the second quarter, though, was interesting. So it was 3 goals apiece in the second quarter, and I'm going to go 5 or 6 minutes at the end of the second, probably just turned Sydney's way a little bit. What were you thinking at halftime? I was a supporter, so I was just nervous still. Oh, what if they come back? They're going to have a huge effort in the third quarter. We need to be so good. As a bit more neutral, what were you feeling at halftime? Did you see it as already being over, or did you think the Swans were coming?
No, I thought it was over. I mean, Reid had just limped to the bench, but he hadn't got a touch. You're looking at it going, okay, Warner's getting a bit of the ball, but where were they going to stop Geelong? And Geelong, Tom Stewart was getting tagged, but Geelong had this loose man. Everything was on Geelong's terms, and yes, they got a couple of goals, which they were always going to. No, I just thought this is just going to keep rolling.
Yeah. Domsy, you at halftime?
Well, it looked like, Geelong were clearly primed, all the preparation they've done. They were ready for this on the back of last week's game. But on Scotty's point, I wonder if Sydney actually really looked at that game against Brisbane, Geelong played against Brisbane, and picked up anything. Because like you said, there was always that. It wasn't Tommy Stewart this time because he was getting tagged, but it was Zach Tui.
Or the kid.
They were always
Sam
so
DeConey.
or DeConey. They were always so strong behind the footy. Like they never got even numbers ahead of the footy and gave their forwards a chance. And I think they were obviously clearly worried that they were getting smashed around the contest, which they were even with the extra number.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, what do you do?
They were so clean early to Geelong, which got that centre domination, which I think put the Swans right on the back foot. And from there, so my one concern going into the game was Sydney's pressure and their enormous effort around the contest is excellent. But then could they get Geelong on the outside with some speed and they win the contest and they flick it around and bang, 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 bang. But because it was so often coming from deep in defence because of Geelong smashing them through the middle of the ground to start the game, that it went back to like Brisbane was playing in that preliminary final. Their only option was, I don't know where to go with this. I'm going long, slow, down the line. Geelong would clean that up and bang, it'd go back in. And you're right. And you played as a defender and what was one of the very, very best. Yeah. But even the very best defenders get reactive and feel under the pump when the ball is living there permanently.
Yeah. And the entries they did get, Scotty, Sydney we're talking about, they were shallow. They were 45 metre out from goal. So they weren't even dangerous entries. They didn't put the Geelong defenders under any pressure at any point in time. And that's really because they couldn't win the footy around the middle, around the contest.
But when the skipper, and we'll go on more about him, but 12 touches, starts on the bench, sets the tone.
Yep.
I mean, he's Norm Smith at quarter time, and then Paddy, and then Isaac. A few had a dibs at the Norm. But when he does that, and you mentioned clean, all their entries after one bad kick was amazing.
Well, there are so many stories to touch on.
Yeah.
The skipper is one. We'll hold that for 1 second. We'll go to the Norm Smith medalist, Isaac Smith. An incredible game of football he plays. He kicks 3 goals. He has, what do you end up with, 32 touches, 750 metres game or something like that. He got that role because Max Holmes unfortunately missed out. And he went straight to the wing and played it so beautifully. Now, we feel incredibly for Max Holmes. But as good a year as he's had, he's hopefully going to get another opportunity and is going to have a massive career, we all hope. Isaac Smith's run and breaking of the lines and those couple of goals he kicked in pretty quick succession, it really did break the game open.
Well, he was the only one who was quiet in the prelim. And yet this shows what this team, like you said, Max goes out, shuffle Isaac up. The Shark came on and played well on the wing and various other roles, but I mean, that was just an experienced player, finisher. That's why they got him. Yeah. Who cares about his age when he does that? Yeah,
and look, you go through the whole team that played on Saturday, Scotty, and just you got to credit the list management. I mean, Isaac Smith, he's won 3 premierships prior to Saturday. He's played that wing role so well. He provides that run and carry, and like you said, that the metres gained, that's the bit that gets, I think, that Geelong has missed in the past. He always runs the ball 15 to 20 metres and then kicks it 60. Yeah. So he's going to kick it. He's going to give it 70 metres most times, every time. And Geelong have really lacked that traditional winger, and him and Holmes have played that role really well all year. And he's a big game player. As we said, he's played in 3 flags already. Come in and just played his role perfectly.
11 inside 50s with that kicking ability.
But, and we tinker with that. Like Mitch Duncan was forward and getting the ball early. The right people had the ball. I mean, Paddy, let's get to Paddy. Every time he went near it.
So they make the brave call during the middle of the year to say to Patrick Dangerfield and convince Patrick Dangerfield, he's spoken about this, we're going to leave you out for 4, 5, 6 weeks, whatever it is, to get you healthy, to then rebuild you with another little mini pre-season because we want you fresh for finals. You haven't been able to be at your best in finals in recent history because of your body. And he just plays it so hard, his body's always smashed up. They make that decision, which is a huge call, to risk dropping 3 of those 5, maybe, because Paddy Dangerfield makes you a better team. They make that great call. He then eases back in. Mind you, his first game back, he did kick a goal 3 seconds into his comeback game, but then has the odd scratchy game in his first few back, but builds back in with match fitness and is best on ground in the preliminary final.
Starts on the bench in the first final.
Yeah.
That's still sort of holding back.
Prelim final best on ground and is second in the Norm Smith voting. Some might have argued he was best on ground. It doesn't matter. We're not going to go into that one. But that call, Scotty, to be brave with it. But Paddy's performance, and I think won the Gary Ayres Best Finals Player Award. Remarkable.
Oh, and not the pressure, but he talks about the pressure himself. He came here to win it. He admitted he's wanted it too much before, and he's played like that. He's tried to do everything, and he's found a US guru, NFL guru to talk to. And so he's worked on himself to get where. That's what I think is pretty impressive. It's almost like he trusts the team and he knows how to do it now, whereas he didn't before.
Yeah, and coupled with, I think, and I've heard this a few times over the weekend, I think Sean Grigg, assistant coach, who works a lot with the midfielders, had a really hard conversation with both him and Joel about their roles and how we need to maximise them when they're in there. And I think previously, Paddy has just sat in the midfield for too long, and offensive stuff's been good, but at times his disposal inside 50, which I think has frustrated a lot of Geelong supporters. It was a bit sloppy, and that was probably because he was staying on the ground for too long.
Yeah,
and I think Sean Grigg getting fatigued, and given we needed to get Tom Atkins in there, we needed to get Cam Guthrie in there. These types of players have greater roles that they needed to pull back the time on ground for Paddy, and I think that was hard for him to cop early, and I think he's mentioned that as well. And the credit has to go to the coaching staff, and I think Sean is behind this. Starting him on the bench, giving Tommy Atkins, who we know what he's done throughout the year, Cam Guthrie, these type of players, more midfield time, and setting him up and priming him for the back end of the year. For what we saw. And I remember just quickly, we saw a game out here against the Western Bulldogs. I think it was his first or second game back, and there was a contest against Caleb Daniel, and he absolutely smashed through. He came out of the centre circle and smashed through Caleb Daniel. We all went, wow, that's Paddy. That's what we love about Paddy. And go, geez. And I remember saying on the podcast, I said, he could be a real X factor if he can bring that sort of that big bull sort of behaviour around the contest. And I think that's what we really saw from Paddy over the last 2 weeks. He was just an absolute menace in there, wasn't he?
Yeah. A lot of dominoes had to fall into place for that scenario to happen, which adds to everything that you're saying, that credit. So the move of Atkins into the midfield had to take place.
They didn't lose a game after that.
A deeper midfield. But also Sam de Koning had to stand up and play as the key back, which meant Mark Blitzarves could be a permanent midfielder.
Zach Guthrie had to stand up to become Tom Atkins in defence. Yeah. Like if he doesn't stand up, well, maybe you think,
we've got to push him back there. Exactly. And then you get a deep enough midfield that can then take Dangerfield out for longer periods of time and get that freshness while he's in there. Yeah, it's a really good point.
Lastly, it just looked as though every time the midfield was so fresh through the last 2 weeks. You had Guthrie come on for a short 6 or 7 minutes, get off. Dangerfield, Selwood, they all took their turn. They didn't spend too long in there, and then they got off.
Phenomenal.
Coaching.
Let's get to the skipper. We don't want to hold on to that too long. Final number 40.
Can a man's reputation go in 72 hours? Like it hasn't just been the Grady. Everything he's done.
Well, we know him as this magnificent person, incredible leader, great player, and just a quality human being. It was so nice to have the non-Geelong football fans just appreciate how magnificent he is. The game that he plays, he leads the way in that first quarter.
Sets the tone.
Has a monster game. Ends up with 26 disposals, hard, tough, culminating in that magnificent goal where I'm not sure he's kicked a little banana from, about 45 on the run too many times in his career.
I saw on Twitter that the last captain with a flag did something similar in the grand final around the same time.
Well, when we were down watching and in the race by this stage, because we're about to go out in the ground for the presentation, and see a couple of people turn and go, "Oh wow, he's copying you," and I'm like, "Yeah, and I taught him everything I knew." It was fantastic. I tell you what, he does so much right. I was angry at him.
You can fluke a couple of times, but you can't fluke every step is right.
He bloody well had me in tears when he ran out in the ground with Levi Ablett.
Incredible.
Just a beautiful moment. And then after when he's getting presented the medal, he takes his boots up and gives it to the kid. I'm like, righto, Joel, you are making all of us look so bad.
The speech, great.
Yeah.
Then everyone jumps off and he goes back and sees the kid's all right. Then he gets Sammy out of the crowd, rings his mum while he goes, don't worry, I'll get him home. Like, how much more? Seriously.
It was, I mean, what more can you say about him? I mean, but it's leadership at the highest level, and he's done it on the biggest stage. I think not only will we look back on him and he'll absolutely be a Geelong legend and definitely, I think, an AFL legend as well at some point. But he's done more than that. He's shown people the right way to do things. It's about just being a good person when you're a superstar player, but you can still give to others. And isn't it just those human qualities that you go, wow, that's just a good human being, and he's showing others how it should be done. Because we see enough of the negative stuff on social media and around the world, and he's just a person on the biggest stage that has just gone, no, I'm going to not worry about myself, worry about someone else.
And hats off to Dane Rampy. I thought that was
an awesome
outstanding.
speech,
I mean, you've just been flogged, and you've remembered to say this guy is a giant of the game. That was awesome.
Chris Scott, the other part of that leadership piece that got to hold up that premiership card. What a coaching career he's had, and it's been a funny one at times with the Geelong supporters. So he wins a premiership in his first year and does an incredible job. I've been on record. I will not cop this whole thing he got given a premiership. It was all this. He managed us brilliantly, Domsey. He pushed us to embrace change. He understood how driven a lot of us were, and that core was there, but he needed to add piece, and he did it superbly. Yeah. Then he embarked upon a period where he had to slowly manage out some of the greatest players to ever play football at this football club, and it wasn't always smooth. Some players wanted to play on and couldn't at Geelong, so did at other clubs, and it wasn't perfectly done from both sides. Yeah, absolutely from both sides. But throughout that process, they still remained competitive, missed finals once. Then, through either drafting, free agency, trading, management of player, all of that, they then got back up somewhere near the top again and made multiple prelim finals, grand final in 2020, but fell short and unfairly copped a whack for the fact that they couldn't win the ultimate, despite most other clubs probably being keen to be part of the last four each year for 4 or 5 years in a row. Now he gets them back to actually winning the premiership. It has been an incredible effort for, what are we talking now, 12 years?
12 years.
12 years as coach.
And I think what we've seen is he's admitted while he played his role, clearly a very important role in 11, it wasn't his team, and he didn't feel, he hasn't felt like that was as much his as now, which is that's just the way he felt.
People, okay. So I don't want to.
But I agree.
Shoot down what he felt.
Sit in his desk and not do anything like Mac.
This is the thing that frustrates me. What people don't realise how wrong somebody could have got that group.
Yeah, totally.
And walked in and said, "Nah,
we're doing this.
You boys,
I'm the coach.
We're changing everything you guys have done."
I totally get that.
Completely just going back the same. And not bringing any change. It could have been done wrong. He did it perfectly.
He doesn't feel it wasn't his team, which is...
That's cool.
He knows he played a role, but you know what I mean? This one, he's as loose as there is now.
Yeah, so we got flogged by Collingwood in 2010 prelim by 50-odd points. We were so far off it. We were done. We were cooked. We were too old. Ablett walked out. But he brought a freshness. He changed the game style. I remember him come in and changed it just slightly, just tinkered with it enough to
defense, press,
to get our senior players on board with this is a different way we can play and still win. And then following on from that, like Lingy said, he's gone about changing all these superstars while staying at the top. Now, Geelong fans have been frustrated. Like, we hear it all around where we go, and Chris Scott, there's always something to bag him about. And you get to this point in time where he's won a premiership, and he's kept the team all by 1 year up the top of the tree. And I think now it is really a lot different team to what it was in 2011. There's 3 players left to finally win a premiership and be able to keep us up the top for all those years. And just to hear him say the other night I think it was on 360, it was just finally being able to have a breath out, finally breathe, because he probably has felt that pressure of transitioning all these players out, trying to keep the team up the top without dropping off the cliff, and getting so close. 2019 against Richmond, 21 points up in the prelim, should have probably won that game. Tom Lynch comes out in the third quarter and kicks 3 or 4 goals. We lose it to Richmond. 2020,
Dusty beats them by himself.
Dusty beats them. 2021 last year, prelim.
Smacked.
He got smacked. And he mentioned he'd been a couple of really tough years in the Hub and over in Perth last year. And to this year, finally getting it done. You just got to give him credit where credit's due.
Totally agree.
Certainly do. Absolutely. Huge effort. We've got to take a break in a second. Just a little one here that Rowan, our magnificent producers, come up with. Sam de Koning at pick 19, Joel Selwood at pick 7, way back, were the only Geelong players selected for Geelong inside the top 20 in the draft. So obviously they have other top 20 draft picks playing in the team that won on the weekend, but not selected by Geelong, were brought in. It's going to pose a really good question about how other clubs approach their list management strategies and how you bring talent in. Is it still going to the draft? Is it using all 3 levers, draft, free agency, trading? All those different... Is the new baseline age gone up a little bit for a premiership? Can you still win it when you're young? Because the answer is... The answer is kind of all of the above a little bit. Melbourne won a premiership last year without a 200-game player in the grand final team. So you can win it either way, but it goes to show that this strategy can also work. Now, a bit of talk. Andrew Mackey's going to have a busy off-season with Tanner Bruin perhaps looking to come back. Ollie Henry's name's been floated. Was it Jack Bowes from...
Gold Coast.
From the Gold Coast Suns and
pick 7.
All that sort of stuff's floating around in there as well, which is only going to hopefully add to the group. But the way that they've been able to have this list from other clubs, but some from through the draft, and a Max Holmes is just outside the top 20. So they've put together a premiership list in a very, very different way to the way that we're used to seeing it.
Yeah, and there was something interesting, I think Scotty might have said on the podcast a few weeks ago or another platform. He said the way they manage their TPP gives them a competitive advantage. And I think you've got to look more deeply than just the list build or list strategy from Geelong's point of view. You've got to look at the culture. I think that's played a really important part. Players hear about Geelong and the place it is, and they want to come and play here. I'd be surprised. I'd be interested to know from Andrew and Wellesley and these guys how many players, managers are actually saying that this player wants to come and play for Geelong. And is that a lot to do with the culture of the place, the living environments? We see Tommy Hawkins lives out on the farm. Jezza Cameron lives out on the farm.
Jezza and his cows.
Paddy Dangerfield is down by the ocean. All these things. So I think there's a lot more that goes into just the list build and strategy.
Welcome back. It is great to have you with us on this Premiership edition of To the Final Bell, brought to you by Lake Imaging, as we have been all throughout the year. Okay, couple of things just before the break. One, we are joined by a nice special guest. For those of you who are watching this and not just listening to it, it is the 2022 Premiership Cup.
Looks in good nick.
Oh, yeah. It does, yeah. It hasn't been banged around too much, been well and truly looked after.
Jezza and no chooks have laid eggs in it or anything like that.
I must say, and a huge thank you to the Geelong Football Club for this honour, and to the board and Steve Hocking for allowing me to be part of the day.
Yeah. How was it? How was the experience?
It was unbelievable. It truly was. So pre-game down there with Paul Kelly. We do the little when Bashahuli walks out as the cup ambassador, gives it to Paul and I. We put it on the little plinth, the podium thing. So I'm out on the ground. Robbie Williams is playing. The crowd is going crazy. Then you do that little bit. You go and stand with the umpires and the national anthem plays, and that roar. It's just as you remember it, Domsy. It is something just spine tingling. Yeah. And then watching the game, sharing the game, we're down on the fence, watching it with my wife and my kids. Just so happy. Like honestly, I was shaking my oldest boy Max, saying, "I think we're going to do it." All that sort of stuff.
Was it the Stengel goal? You were
He was right there in front of us.
On the TV.
And even Maxie, again, my oldest, he turned around and he goes, "Dad, we might be on TV for that one." And we were, and it was just the best day. And then we got taken round to the Geelong race where we got to come out on the ground, and so all the other players who weren't playing and the staff and everything have charged out on the ground. Me, Nicole, and the three boys have walked out. Well, straight away, my boys, they were just wanting to roll around on the grass. Yeah. And Jed, my youngest, went and dived in the painted logo. He just wanted to be part of that. So the opportunity, just not just for me to be able to have that honour of presenting the cup to the two great men in Joel Selwood and Chris Scott, to have my wife and kids in particular on the ground. And they were able to stay on the ground through the whole celebration. Yeah. Henry, my middle boy, grabbed my phone off me and just disappeared. And I get it back later on, that after it all, and there is photos with nearly every player who played.
Selfies?
Yeah, a few selfies. He's gone and organised them to get photos with his brothers, and it was just pure happiness. Yeah. And then we got to follow them in and go into the rooms, and it was chaos in the rooms. But again, it was with my three boys, and I never had kids when I played. Yeah. So I never had that moment with them, but this was so special. Yeah. So, yes, again, a huge thank you for that incredible honour. It was a day that we as a family will never forget. Yeah. We loved it. So great to see the 2022 Premiership Cup back with us here in the boardroom at the club. All right, let's get to some of these questions that our listeners have kindly sent in. We love the interaction that we have. I've apologised numerous times throughout the year that I don't get to all of the questions, but let's get some of them. How did you keep up the momentum throughout the grand final? How did the Cats keep that momentum going? Domsy, it's funny. I did a lunch at the Newcombe Footy Club. Yeah. It was
Cashy.
Well, it was it was a really good event that raised money for their All Abilities program that they run at Newcombe.
And so it was free. You did it for free.
The junior coordinator at Newcombe, his name's Scott Smith, was awarded the AFL Oz Kicker of the Year. For the entire AFL. So they awarded him. He went up to the parade.
Oh, the little kid.
No.
The bloke who
organised the whole thing. So congratulations. Someone out of the Geelong region.
That's awesome.
Fantastic.
Oz Kicker coordinator of the year, Scott Smith. So big
awesome.
Congratulations to him. We were there. Wojo was on the panel and Big Otto. Yeah. Wojo reminded me what Bomber Thompson had said to us at three-quarter time in 2007, and I'd forgotten it. And Bomber said, "You're all about to be premiership players. It's about how you now decide to finish this game and play out the game. You can either let Port Adelaide kick 5 or 6 goals and you can kick a couple and they get a little bit of respectability, or you can finish this game off as you've played all year and just go completely to the very end and be ruthless to the very end and finish this game playing the football that you've played all year and destroying them." And
that's a bit of spine tingling.
Yeah,
I love it.
And I was like,
he was good at that, Bomber, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I'm like, that's right, Woj. He did say that. I don't know if a similar speech happened in this game, but it felt like Geelong went to the very end against the Swans. There was no just, we've got this one, let's ease off and put the cue in the rack. This was playing to the very last minute. A couple of players snuck down and made sure they got a goal out of it, like Sammy De Koning and that, but it had that feel of, we're going to play this to the final siren, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And, it was exactly what they've really produced for probably not as long as what they did on the grand final day, but they've done that to such a high level for the last 15 or 16 weeks, haven't they? We saw it in the prelim. They're just the system. Everyone talks about system, and you can just, when you're live watching it, how their mids get back and help their defenders, and then their forwards come their forwards squeeze right up and get in their defensive 50 as well. And then when they win the ball, they just spread out. They're just so well drilled, and each of them clearly know their role so well. You know, and the fact that it's on the biggest stage of all, and they know they're going to win this game comfortably. They want to finish off. And everyone wants to join the fun at that point in the game too, don't they?
Exactly right. Scotty, I'll put this one to you. Patrick Dangerfield won the Player of the Finals, the Gary Ayres Award. Isaac Smith obviously won the Norm Smith medal. But who played the most underrated game of the finals or underrated final series?
The whole final series for Geelong.
Underrated. The reason why I'm directing this one to you is I hope you name a certain player.
I think I know the player you're talking about.
There's a lot of pressure suddenly. Underrated. So it'll be a defensive,
No, not necessarily defensive.
long sleeve wearing person.
Come on. Although
Brad
Close's grand final and his final series was off the charts.
Yes.
And I've barely... He's got credit because he deserves credit.
Oh, he was outstanding.
But I have not heard enough love. I
Okay.
think underrated Brad Close.
Underrated. Yeah. No, that's fair. I think there was a few in that boat.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying there weren't others, but I just think
You're a
Brad
Brad
Close's
Close man.
entire final series was
Yeah, he was good when
outstanding.
it mattered. Yeah.
Collingwood game.
Yeah, I think you look back to the Collingwood game. I mean, that was clearly the game that they were challenged the most, and it was high stakes. It was 95,000.
And he did
I thought
certain things.
our man Zach Guthrie was sensational.
it's good
I
call.
thought he was
Good call.
sensational.
Is that Guthrie?
Had some big jobs.
Yeah, big jobs. He was
There's
very
a
good
few.
in that
You
game.
could name 5, to be honest.
Yeah, he could.
Um,
Yeah.
I'll
Jasny.
Yes.
Yes.
He was brilliant. The
His
Brisbane
last two
game.
games have been great.
Here we go. I'll let you two have this one.
Okay.
And I know which way you're going. Who had the better captain's goal in the grand final? Lingy or Joel?
Wow. Where do we start?
Mine
on
was
this,
a
Domsy?
snap from 65 with 4 blokes hanging off me.
Your celebration was pretty good, but Joel's on the ground emotion was probably tipped. Yours was very excitable.
Joel went the
was.
emotional route. I went I'm going to charge back to the centre like a lunatic.
Well, revisiting to this, when you kicked that goal, that's when I was directly behind you. We all jogged back to our position. We were like, we've got it. We knew as soon as you kicked that goal, we went up. Like, yeah, that's it.
That's
Got the
it.
premiership done.
So the decider,
You were 110 points up when you kicked it.
was Danger robbed of the Norm Smith medal? No, he wasn't.
not
he wasn't
robbed.
robbed. It was a good
It was
philosophical
a legitimate close call.
debate.
And Danger gave Jeremy Cameron that goal. I mean, it's funny if Danger kicked 2 goals.
Yeah.
Maybe he get his influence. I mean, but Isaac just kept.
Was it Danger who kicked it to De Koning too in the goal?
Yeah.
one?
That was his
yeah.
over the shoulder. It was
Yep.
probably going to be a point, but De Koning
Okay.
marked it.
Yeah.
Look, I wouldn't have been unhappy if it went the other way.
Yeah, I thought
that
it was a
makes
toss
sense.
of the coin between the two. But you go through Isaac. Not that it should be about stats,
No,
Domsy, but you're
no,
about to underline them. That
Yeah.
stat line, reel it off.
Well, Isaac Smith had 32 disposals. He had 12 marks. He had 3 goals, 2 tackles. What do you have?
11 inside 50s.
11 inside 50s.
And throw in the 750 odd
clearances.
metres
Yeah.
gained.
Yeah.
Now, Dangerfield, I think, when the game was still right there to be won, was supreme. Do you know who after the game, having a few beers, of course, you just start talking about everything, but was never going to win the Norm Smith medal. He didn't do all the Isaac Smith things and the Patrick Dangerfield things, but I almost would have, if there was a different award for most important on the ground, I thought it was Mark Blitzarves.
Yeah, he was.
I just thought his big body, big clearances, and sometimes they were just those snap clearances, but early to get it forward.
Yep.
Yes.
I just thought
yes,
Blitz
I
was
agree with
huge.
that.
I tipped him for the Norm, and I thought he was well and truly one of the most important players.
So who else got votes? De Koning got a vote. Stengel got a vote.
got 4 votes, I think.
Yeah, and
De Koning. If Hawkins had kicked
Hawks got a
straight, he'd
vote.
probably...
Well, he should have had
But
6.
Scotty, are the votes when they cast their votes, are stats or Ling? Are the stats just overwhelming when you look at 32 and 3 goals? How can you go past that?
Well, I think that was the thing in the
that-
back of the mind.
But he did get a few cheap ones.
Well, he got 2 early. Yeah, the
I
2
remember
goals
watching him
early
late in the
lit it
last
up.
quarter, and it was just a little sideways.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
over the top.
Too often. I've voted on it once, definitely, but I have voted on other awards like the Anzac Medal and things like that. If you're in doubt a little bit, too often you go to the stats.
Yeah.
You really shouldn't.
Yeah.
It should be on influence.
Yeah.
If it was 32 and no goals, Dangerfield would have got it.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
But
What if Danger kicked that goal instead of giving it to Jezza and then kicked one more?
But
Sympathetic.
please don't take this discussion as taking away anything
No,
from anyone.
no.
It's I think what most people were doing Saturday night as they were basking in the joy of the win. They're going, oh, I thought this and thought that. That's the beauty of footy. Magnificent. What was your favourite part of this week? I mean, apart from just how well Geelong played, it wasn't a scrappy sort of performance where the other team just didn't turn up. They just blew Sydney off the park. I'm a bit of an emotional one. The moment with Joel and Levi was the most special, and seeing Gaz out there too. Just that. Gaz, he almost finished his career with a premiership in his last game in 2020. That was pretty special, and that relationship we've all got with him. At which point of the season did you think Geelong had a chance of winning the premiership? All right, this is honesty time, guys.
Well, like everyone, I think they were 5-4 and 7th, and then they started motoring. I've heard a couple of I've heard Chris Scott mention there was a Richmond game and a Port Adelaide. I remember the Port Adelaide game when Tom Atkins took over. It was like, whoa.
Yes.
Because they were in trouble that day.
that last quarter.
Remember that? That was in Adelaide.
Geelong had been really good early. Port Adelaide destroyed them for a quarter, and then Atkins reversed
They're the
everything.
two games that I know have been mentioned. Does that ring a bell with you too?
It does, and I mentioned it on the podcast just after the Richmond game. I think the Richmond game was the big one because they were down by 3 or 4 goals, and there was still 13 or 14 minutes to play. And given that it was on the MCG, it was a big crowd against Richmond, who've been thereabouts for the last few years. For them to come back and win that game, I think that just gave them a lot of confidence. And
What
then
round was that?
Oh, that would have been 8 or 9.
The Richmond one was, I'm just grabbing it now.
Was it that early
No,
in
it
the
was
year? No, it was
later.
10?
It was
11?
round 15.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, 15.
3 points.
Right, yep.
So that I rewatched that game maybe a month ago, and it was better football than pretty much I'd seen for most of the year.
Yeah.
As in the quality of that game, the intensity. I am still thankful, honestly. I think Geelong still wins it, and they were the best team all year. I'm still thankful Brisbane knocked Richmond out of the finals.
Yes, yeah. I think
There was something about Richmond.
Yeah.
I walked away, and I've been on record about this. I walked away from that round 9 game against St Kilda deeply concerned.
Oh, yes, that was
Because
the loss.
Geelong was obliterated on the outside,
Leg
their
speed,
run, all of that. And I thought, hang on, I've overrated Geelong. Because I was one of the few I was quite bullish on them early on in the season. I thought, a fresh Cameron, this sort of thing, everything like that. This can work. And then I watched that game and I thought, I've overrated them. They're not actually going to be that good. It took me a few weeks after that to start believing again. They knocked off the Dogs in round 12 with a good performance. But, I'm probably at that round. Probably that run of round 15 was against Richmond. And then they beat Melbourne pretty comfortably on that Thursday night game.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
And they had Carlton the following week, Port Adelaide the week after that, which is the one you're talking about. That was a group of games where they just went whack, whack, whack. I'm like, okay, they're now... Remember it was Melbourne then daylight? And then it was like you close the gap a little bit. Maybe it's Geelong and someone else Geelong and Brisbane sitting there, but maybe it's closing. That group of games said, it's not Melbourne and daylight, it's Geelong.
Yes.
And then Melbourne on the same line, and Melbourne dropped away. Thank you for that question, though. I've just got to quickly open that one back up. How does it feel as ex-players watching the young boys play and winning the flag? I will say simply magnificent.
Yeah.
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
We mentioned Close and Stengel, De Koning, even Tom Stewart. I know he's no longer a young player.
Yeah,
but his story, Jack Henry. I got to briefly sit with Jack Henry in the rooms after the game. He's just played on Lance Franklin and beaten him.
One.
Yeah.
And he was just quietly there sitting there with a couple of mates. I think his brother was there as well, just having a quiet beer.
New Geelong cat, Ollie.
I think it's not just those players. You got Collar, you got Busey, Guthrie.
Saw Andrew Buse in the rooms after the game too. To talk about a very happy
man.
ex-teammate, ex-captain, and a proud dad.
Gary Rowan for all he's been through.
Yeah.
Zach,
Yeah.
Reg, our man.
Yeah. And this is what goes to what we're talking about, Scotty. They've as players, you constantly put yourself up for criticism when you go into finals. And they've been knocked around a bit over the last 10 or so years, especially a lot of those boys. Busey's been thereabouts. He played, I think, on Eddie Betts in 2017 or Charlie Cameron. Cameron kicked 4 or 5 on him, and then to constantly keep backing up each year. And, you're under the spotlight, under the bright lights. And I think for guys like him and Collar and these guys to finally get that reward, that was the bit that I really enjoyed, is those boys really deserved it.
Yeah, they'd worked long and hard and had moments where they'd been beaten in a final, but also personally beaten in a final to bounce back from that. I saw a beautiful moment, and this will mean a bit to you because I know you love Mick Atkins.
Yes.
Tommy Atkins with Mick and the whole family. They were in like a little mini huddle in the change rooms, just having this little tiny family moment together, and it was so cool. It meant the world to all of them.
Yeah, he's a big teddy bear, old Mick. He's a lot of
people. Tell that to any people who played against him back in his day.
Everyone thinks he's
He's completely mad. I love it.
He's mad, he's brutal, he's all that. But underneath it all, he's a big softie. And they are a beautiful
He was
family,
a journo at the Herald Sun, or the Sun when I started.
Yeah, that's right.
Mick.
White Line Fever used to do it.
Set me on my way, Mick, before we went into the fish and chip business.
Thank you so much to all of our wonderful listeners throughout this season. What a ride it's been. We love having your interactions on the podcast. It's great to be able to bring it to you. Big thanks to Scotty Gullan from the Herald Sun, who decided to come back from the Greek islands and get involved in the Premiership.
He's done the Paddy Dangerfield type of just have a little sort of
I'm very
hiatus
similar.
mid-year, which is...
Burst player.
Yeah.
Very much a burst
Come back
player.
for the pointy end.
Thank you very much for all your
It's
work.
been an honour and a
Scott.
privilege to be here.
Domsy,
Ling,
you were
thank you
the
very much.
call up when Scotty ran off, and you were that
No,
good.
you ran off first.
Oh,
You
I
ran
did
off,
too.
yeah,
I
yeah.
did too. My
Yeah,
bad.
Domsy,
yes.
while you're on
And
some mid-year
swapperoo.
sojourn.
The feedback from the listeners was such that you had
There
to
we go.
stay on.
Yep.
We were not allowed to get rid of you as much as we tried and wanted and all
No,
that sort
we-
of stuff.
I don't
I did
think
run
we-
into a few after the game as we were walking out. And
Oh,
a few mentioned,
lovers of the
They
pods.
loved the
Yes.
potty. Yeah, quite a few. So that was great.
No, thank you, Domsy. Keep up your great work with the Geelong Falcons program. You can see, I think a couple of kids are going to be massive draft chances.
Maybe the Cats. We'll wait and see.
Oh, that would be very, very nice. Huge thanks to our producer, Rowan Mackey, who I saw in the crowd and
He was...
got to see with a big smile on his face. Thank you, Ro. Also to Troy Daniel, who's basically ran the whole operation and kept us in line, hasn't he?
Yes.
A couple of firm emails saying, you guys need to actually agree on a time and get your act
getting
together.
you here on time is always interesting.
But most importantly, big thank you to all of our wonderful listeners. We love being a part of this podcast, and we love your support of the Cats, being a member, and hopefully into next year when the Cats go back to back. But what a year it has been. 2022 Premiers, the Geelong Cats. AFLW, can you just do the same thing, please? And two premierships in 1 year?
Yep.
Is that asking a bit much? Maybe. But we'll see. They're going along very, very nicely at the moment. Enjoy the off-season of the men's. Enjoy the rest of the AFLW season. We will hopefully be back again next year. Go Catters.
Go Cats.